What if I told you that the single most powerful force in personal finance has absolutely nothing to do with how hard you work, how many hours you put in, or even how smart you are with your spending? What if the secret to building real, lasting wealth was something you could set up once and then essentially watch run on autopilot while you sleep, eat, go to work, and live your life? Because that is exactly what we are talking about today. And by the end of this video, you are going to understand not just what this concept is, but precisely how to activate it in your own financial life, starting right now. I want you to picture a small snowball sitting at the top of a very long hill. In the beginning, it is tiny, almost embarrassingly small. You could hold it in the palm of your hand and feel nothing special about it at all. But the moment you give it a push, something remarkable starts to happen. As it rolls down the hill, it picks up more snow, and that extra snow makes the ball slightly bigger. And because it is slightly bigger, it now picks up even more snow with each rotation, and that extra snow makes it bigger still. By the time that snowball reaches the bottom of the hill, it has transformed from something you could hold in one hand into something that could crush a car. That is the snowball effect. That is what money does when you understand how to use it correctly. And most people never activate it because they're missing a few critical pieces of the puzzle. Here is the uncomfortable truth that the financial industry does not exactly shout from the rooftops. Most people spend their entire lives trading time for money. You work an hour, you get paid for an hour. You stop working, the money stops coming. This is what economists call linear income, and while there's nothing wrong with it, it has a fundamental ceiling. There are only so many hours in a day. The snowball effect operates on a completely different principle. It's not about trading time for money, it's about putting money to work so that the money itself generates more money, which then generates even more money, compounding upon itself in an increasingly powerful cycle. The technical term for this is compound growth, and it is genuinely one of the most underappreciated mathematical phenomena in human history. Albert Einstein allegedly called compound interest the eighth wonder of the world. Whether or not he actually said that, the sentiment is completely accurate because the math behind compounding is almost surreal when you see it laid out in real numbers. So let us look at some real numbers right now because this is where things get genuinely interesting. Imagine two people. Let's call them Jordan and Alex. Jordan starts investing at age 22, putting away just $200 a month into a diversified investment account, earning an average annual return of around 8%. Jordan does this consistently for 10 years and then stops completely at age 32, never adding another single dollar. Alex, on the other hand, does not start until age 32, but Alex invests that same $200 a month for the next 30 years straight, all the way until age 62. So, who ends up with more money at retirement? Most people intuitively guess Alex because Alex invested for 3 times as long and contributed far more total money out of pocket. But the answer is Jordan. Jordan ends up with significantly more wealth despite contributing only a fraction of what Alex contributed. The reason is timing. Jordan gave the snowball more hill to roll down. The early years of compound growth, even if the numbers look small and unimpressive, are quietly laying the foundation for exponential returns decades later. This is not a trick or a gimmick, this is mathematics, and it does not care about your feelings or your excuses. So now that we understand why the snowball effect is real and why it matters, let's talk about the 4 essential components you need to actually activate it. Because understanding the theory is one thing, but knowing exactly what levers to pull is what separates the people who build wealth from the people who watch from the sidelines wishing they had started sooner. The first component is what I call the seed. This is your initial capital, the starting amount that begins the snowball. A common misconception is that you need a large seed to get started, and this belief alone is probably responsible for more missed financial opportunities than any other single factor. People tell themselves they will start investing once they have a few $1,000s saved up, or once they pay off their car, or once things settle down financially, and the years slip by. The seed does not need to be impressive. It needs to exist. Even $50 a month invested consistently is a seed. What matters is not the size of the seed. What matters is that the seed is planted now rather than later, because every month you wait is not just a month of lost growth on that initial contribution, it's a month of lost growth on all the future growth that contribution would have generated for the rest of your life. The compounding effect punishes delay ruthlessly and rewards early action disproportionately. The second component is the hill, which represents time. And this is where I want to be extremely direct with you because time is the one resource in this entire equation that you absolutely cannot get back. You can always earn more money, find better investment returns, optimize your strategy, but you cannot manufacture more time. The longer your snowball has to roll, the more dramatic the results become. This is why financial advisors hammer the point about starting young, not because young people have more money, but because they have more time. The hill is the multiplier. A 30-year investment horizon at a reasonable return rate transforms modest monthly contributions into genuinely life-changing sums of money in ways that even a 10-year horizon simply cannot replicate. The third component is the slope, which is your rate of return. This is where your actual investment choices come into play. Different asset classes generate different average returns over time. Historically, broad market index funds tracking something like the S&P 500 have delivered average annual returns in the range of roughly 7 to 10% adjusted for various factors over long periods. Bonds tend to be lower, individual stocks can be higher or dramatically lower depending on which ones you pick. Real estate, dividend stocks, and other vehicles all have their own return profiles. The slope of your hill determines how fast the snowball picks up mass. A steeper slope means faster acceleration. But here's an important nuance that many beginner investors miss. Chasing extreme high returns often introduces extreme risk, and volatility can actually damage your snowball. A consistent 7 or 8% return over 30 years is mathematically superior to a return that averages 12% but crashes dramatically every few years, because the crashes interrupt the compounding cycle and force your snowball to rebuild from a smaller base. Consistency beats occasional brilliance almost every single time when it comes to compound growth. The fourth component is probably the most psychologically challenging one. It's friction reduction. Friction is anything that slows down or interrupts the snowball. This includes unnecessary fees, taxes that could be legally deferred or avoided through smart account selection, emotional decisions that cause you to sell investments during market downturns, and lifestyle inflation that prevents you from adding consistently to your investment contributions over time. Every percentage point you lose to fees is a percentage point that's no longer compounding. Over decades, even a 1% difference in annual fees can cost you tens of thousands of dollars in lost growth. This is not an exaggeration. Run the numbers on any compound interest calculator, and the difference will genuinely shock you. Friction reduction is not exciting. It's not the kind of thing people make viral videos about, but it is one of the most impactful optimization moves you can make once the snowball is in motion. Now, I want to address something that comes up constantly when people learn about the snowball effect, and it usually sounds something like this. This all sounds great, but I have debt. How does any of this apply to me? And this is a completely valid and important question because debt is essentially a snowball running in the opposite direction. High interest debt, like credit card balances carrying 15, 20, or even 25% annual interest rates, is compounding against you with the exact same mathematical power that investments compound for you. The single most high return investment most people with high interest debt can make is to eliminate that debt as quickly as possible, because paying off a credit card with a 20% interest rate is the equivalent of earning a guaranteed 20% return on your money, which no traditional investment can reliably match. Once the negative snowball is neutralized, you can redirect that energy into building the positive one. For people with lower interest debt, like mortgages or student loans at 3 to 5%, the calculation becomes more nuanced. If your investments are historically returning 7 or 8% on average, you may actually come out ahead by investing while also making minimum payments on low interest debt rather than aggressively paying down the debt first. The exact right answer depends on your specific numbers, your risk tolerance, and a few other personal factors. But the core principle is clear: eliminate high interest debt first, then unleash the snowball. Let's talk about where exactly to put your snowball in motion, because this is where people often get overwhelmed by choices and end up doing nothing, which is the worst possible outcome. The specific accounts you use matter enormously because of the tax implications. Tax-advantaged retirement accounts, like a 401k or an IRA in the US, allow your investments to grow without being taxed on the gains each year, which is a massive accelerant for the compounding process. When you have to pay capital gains taxes annually on your investment returns, it reduces the amount that actually stays in your account to compound the following year. Tax-deferred and tax-free accounts remove this friction from the equation entirely, allowing the full weight of your returns to keep rolling forward. A Roth IRA, for example, is funded with money you have already paid taxes on, but then all the growth inside that account is completely tax-free when you withdraw it in retirement. For young investors with decades of compounding ahead of them, this can translate to an absolutely enormous tax-free windfall later in life. A traditional 401k or IRA reduces your taxable income today by allowing pre-tax contributions, which means you get an immediate financial benefit while also deferring the taxes on growth until withdrawal. Both approaches have their merits and ideal use cases, and the right choice depends on whether you expect to be in a higher or lower tax bracket in retirement. Beyond retirement accounts, taxable brokerage accounts offer more flexibility in terms of when you can access the money, and they can be a powerful secondary snowball once you have maxed out the tax-advantaged options available to you. The key in any account is consistent contribution, diversified holdings, and resisting the urge to constantly tinker and trade, which generates transaction costs and taxable events that drag down your returns. Now, I want to introduce you to a concept that dramatically accelerates the snowball effect for people who are willing to take it seriously. It is called the gap. The gap is the difference between what you earn and what you spend. The wider your gap, the more fuel you have to throw on the snowball every month. This seems obvious when stated plainly, but its implications are more powerful than most people realize. A person earning $60,000 a year and living on $45,000 has a $15,000 annual gap. A person earning $100,000 and living on $98,000 has a $2,000 gap. Who builds wealth faster? The person with the $60,000 income, obviously, because their gap is dramatically wider as a percentage of their earnings. Income matters, but the gap is the real driver. The most effective way to widen your gap is through a combination of increasing your income and controlling your lifestyle. Increasing income is the more exciting half of this equation. This could mean developing higher value skills in your career, pursuing promotions, starting a side income stream, building a business on the side, or shifting into higher paying fields over time. On the spending control side, the goal is not to live miserably. The goal is to be intentional. There is a profound difference between spending money on things that genuinely add value and joy to your life and spending money on autopilot out of habit or social pressure. Eliminating the second category while protecting the first can often free up hundreds of dollars a month without meaningfully reducing your quality of life. And those freed dollars added to the snowball every month make an enormous difference over decades. Here's something I want you to sit with for a moment, because this is where the psychology of wealth building gets fascinating. There is a phenomenon in behavioral finance called present bias. Humans are hardwired to overvalue immediate rewards relative to future ones. This is why we would rather have $20 today than $40 next month, even though, objectively, waiting is the better deal. Present bias is the arch enemy of the snowball effect. Every time you choose an immediate consumption experience over a future compounding opportunity, you are not just losing the value of what you spent, you are losing all the future returns that money would have generated for the rest of your life. This is not an argument for never enjoying your money. It's an argument for understanding the real cost of every financial decision so that you can make genuinely conscious choices rather than defaulting to whatever feels good in the moment. One strategy for fighting present bias that works remarkably well for many people is automation. When your investment contributions happen automatically, taken directly from your paycheck or bank account before you ever see the money, you never have to fight the psychological battle of choosing to invest over spending. The decision is made once at the time you set up the automation, and then it runs on its own indefinitely. You never have to feel the pain of watching money leave your spending account because it never makes it to your spending account in the first place. Automating your investments is arguably the single most powerful behavioral hack available to everyday investors, and it's completely free to implement through virtually every major financial institution. Now, let me walk you through what the snowball effect actually looks like in practice over a real timeline, because seeing the numbers at different stages is genuinely motivating and clarifying. Imagine you start at age 25, contributing $400 a month to a diversified investment portfolio, averaging 8% annual returns. In the first year, your contributions total around $4,800, and your investment gains are relatively small, maybe a few $100s. Nothing spectacular. By year 5, your account is starting to look more meaningful, somewhere in the $25,000 to $30,000 range. The monthly gains are now noticeably larger than they were at the start, but they still feel modest compared to your contributions. You are in what I think of as the invisible phase of the snowball, where the work is happening, but the dramatic results have not yet materialized. This is the phase where most people get discouraged and either stop, reduce their contributions, or make emotional changes to their strategy. Pushing through this phase with consistent behavior is critical. Around year 10, something starts to shift. The annual growth each year is now approaching the equivalent of your annual contributions. The snowball is picking up real mass. By year 15, the annual returns on your portfolio are substantially larger than what you are contributing each year. The money is now making more money than you are adding. This is the moment, the exact inflection point when the snowball effect truly takes over. Your contributions are now almost secondary to what the accumulated wealth is generating on its own. By the time you reach age 65, that $400 monthly contribution over 40 years could potentially grow into an account worth well over $2 million, depending on actual returns. Your total contributions out of pocket were less than $200,000. The rest of that wealth, well over $1.5 million, was generated purely by the snowball effect, by the math of compounding working silently, relentlessly, year after year in the background of your life. The most important mindset shift you can make right now, regardless of where you're starting from, is to stop thinking about money as something you accumulate and start thinking about it as something you deploy. Every dollar you invest is not a dollar you're losing access to. It's a worker you're hiring to work for you around the clock. That worker earns returns, and those returns hire more workers, and those workers earn more returns. The snowball grows. The hill gets longer behind you and shorter ahead of you. And at some point, if you give it enough time and stay consistent, the snowball becomes so massive that you genuinely cannot stop it. You don't need to be wealthy to start. You don't need a finance degree or a stockbroker or perfect timing in the market. Trying to time the market, waiting for the perfect moment to invest, is one of the most well-documented wealth-destroying behaviors in personal finance research. Time in the market, meaning how long your money is invested, consistently beats timing at the market across virtually every historical period ever studied. You just need to start. Start with whatever you have, even if it's small, even if it feels embarrassingly insufficient, because the snowball doesn't care about your feelings about its starting size. It only cares that it's rolling. Here's your actual action plan for this week. Not someday, this week. First, if you don't have any investment accounts set up, open one. A Roth IRA if you're eligible, or a brokerage account if not. This takes about 15 minutes online with any major financial institution. Second, set up an automatic monthly contribution, even if it's only $50 or $100. The amount matters less than the habit and the automation. Third, choose a simple, diversified investment vehicle. For most people, a low-cost total market index fund or a target date retirement fund is an excellent starting point that requires zero ongoing management or expertise. Fourth, look at your monthly expenses and identify one specific area where you can increase your gap, freeing up more money to add to the snowball over time. And fifth, commit to leaving the investment alone through market fluctuations. The snowball only works if you let it keep rolling. Every time you pull money out during a downturn, you're picking up the snowball and carrying it back up the hill. The people who become genuinely financially free are not necessarily smarter than you. They're not necessarily higher earners. They are the people who understood this one principle early enough, activated it, and then had the patience and discipline to let the mathematics do what mathematics does. The snowball is waiting. The hill is in front of you. The only question is whether you're going to give it a push today or keep standing at the top of the hill wondering what the view from the bottom looks like. Start now. Your future self will find a way to thank you that your present self can't even fully imagine yet. Like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss more videos helping you with investing, personal finance, and more. Check out this playlist of my top videos of personal picks, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care.